5.4, 5.5, point slope and intercepts. We're going to relook at the point slope formula and look at it a little bit different way, and then we're also going to look at the standard form again and graph with the intercepts. So we'll be able to graph several different ways from now on. All right, let's get started. All right, so remember, we can use the point slope formula if given a point on a line and the slope. And remember that formula is y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. All right, remember that m is our slope, and this y right here and this x right here are part of the formula, as is the negatives there. The only thing we plug in is 1 point, and that's the x coordinate goes right here, and the y coordinate goes right here, and the x coordinate goes right there. So if we're given these points, -3, 7, and 12, -3, we need to find the equation of the line that goes through those points. So we want to use the slope formula first because we don't have m, and if that's usually where you want to start. All right, so plugging into my formula, y2 minus y1, remember, let's write that formula down again. Use white. y2 minus y1, and we like to use parentheses, over x2 minus x1. That gives us our slope. Okay, remember I told you you can look at it like this, and you have subtraction, and then these big old legs of the picnic table. Here's your picnic table, and there's the legs of the picnic table. So that way you remember the x's go on the bottom. Okay, so you just plug them in. Now you decide which one you want to have. These are always going to be in x and y order. Doesn't matter. Always x and y, and then you decide which one's group 1 and which one's group 2. Okay, as long as you do it consistently, it really won't matter. But you must do the y's on top. Remember, we renamed the rise over the run. We're now spelling it like this. Rise on your y's over run. So that way you know that the y has to go on top. All right, that's what slope is. All right, so I'm going to plug in my y2, which is going to be my -3. So that goes into my formula, and I've got it written over here, -3. And then I'm going to take y1 and plug it in here, and that's 7 over 12, which is my x2, and my x1 is -3. Notice I have in parentheses, and the minus in the middle is part of the formula. You must leave that there. So -3 minus 7 makes a -10 over, and then 12 minus a -3, that's really a plus. So 12 plus 3 is 15. And that will simplify to -2 over 3, which is what we have right here. Okay? Now you're going to take that is your slope. And remember, when we're trying to find slope-intercept form, we need peanut butter and jelly, which means we need an M and we need a B. In order to do slope-intercept form, we already have our M now. We just have to find B. And we can do that by using the point slope form. All right, so we're going to take one of our points. It doesn't matter which group, either group 1 or group 2. I'm going to use group 1, and I'm going to plug it into my formula. So I'm going to go down here and plug in right here 7, which is my x1, and there's my slope that I just found, and my x1 point. And then you simplify it. Now, if you want to leave it in point slope form, it would just simply be y minus 7 equals -2 over 3 x plus 3. You leave it like that for point slope, okay? And we'll show you why we want to leave it like that sometimes. But you do not distribute unless you're going for the slope-intercept form. If you want to leave it in point slope, this is what it looks like. And then slope-intercept form, if you finish distributing and move your -7 over, this is what it will become. Y is equal to -2/3 x plus 5. And then you can easily see in this particular form that it's going to cross and b is going to be 5. So you can graph it that way. Okay? But we're also going to be learning how to graph using the point slope form itself. It's a pretty interesting way to do it. You may like it a lot. You don't have to do, once you have it in this form, you don't have to do anything. It'll give you a point, and then you've got your slope. Now the only thing it won't give you is b. And b, like I said, you'd have to finish solving it to get this. So if they ask you for the y-intercept or b, you would just make sure you extend your line, or you can go ahead and put it in slope-intercept form and find b. Either way. But there's two ways of graphing these things. All right, so let's look. All right, so by moving this -7 over to the other side, then you're going to have this problem right here. And this is where you're going to be able to get a point, so you can graph it from point slope. So if you move that 7 over, this is what it ends up to be, -2/3, and don't distribute, x plus 3 plus 7. We don't do anything, just leave it like that if you want to graph from point slope only. All right? In this format, it's real easy to see that m is -2/3. That is going to be whatever number is in front of the parentheses. That's your m. We've already found that earlier. Okay? And then we're going to find a point, okay, doing something different. All right? We will look inside the parentheses, and we have a x plus 3. You do the opposite of what's inside. So if we have a plus 3, the opposite would be a -3. That's going to be my x coordinate for a point on this line. All right? So anytime you have parentheses, and you'll see this especially when you go into Algebra 2, most of the time it's the opposite of what's inside of parentheses. It does a lot of different things to the line, and you'll learn about that. It shifts the line specifically in a certain way. So always the opposite of what's inside. And then you take whatever's on the outside and you don't change its sign. It's just 7. So my point that I can graph is -3, 7. And then using my slope from this point, I can graph my line. And if I extend my line, then it will go through your b, which we found earlier to be 5. So let's try to do this on our graph. All right, so I'm going to get a different color. All right, so I'm going to start with the point. You can only start with what you've been given, okay? And if you don't have anything, you have to find its slope first. So I've been given now a point that I can graph, a -3, 7. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go always x first and then y. So it's -3 on my x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, put a dot. That's my starting point on this line. And then I just do the slope to that line. Now you can, usually you go up and down and then to the right. If you don't have enough room and you're going to run out of room on your graph, you can go the opposite direction. So I'm going to go down because that negative I told you, always take care of it first. Put it at the top, take care of it first. So I'm going to go down to and over to the right and put a dot. Down to and over to the right and put a dot. And then draw my line. And you need to check after you've drawn your line to see if it makes sense. Is this a negative slope? Yes. Did my slope, was it supposed to be negative? Yes. So I know I've drawn it in the right direction. And then look right here. It goes across the y-axis at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is what we found when we put it in slope-intercept form. So you'll see, you'll find all the things that you need as long as you graph the parts that you have. You can use either direction, slope-intercept form or point-slope form. You're going to be asked to do both. So you need to know both ways, okay? So you should be able to manipulate your information And whatever they give you, you should be able to graph a line from anything, whether it's just a point and a slope or 2 points and you don't have a slope. You're going to be asked all different directions on this. So be able to do all the ways they ask. You need to practice each one. All right? Next, we're going to go back and look at standard form, which is the ax plus by equals c. Okay? We don't talk about the standard form too much. We just have equations that are in that format. And then we've mostly been solving for y. But you can use this form also to graph with intercepts. And we've done that before, but we're going to go back and practice these because they're really easy to graph. Because remember, you only need 2 points to make a line. So if you have an x-intercept and a y-intercept, you've got your 2 dots, draw your line between. So when it's in this kind of format, it's easiest to use intercepts rather than trying to find the slope and things. So we're trying to find the easiest way given our information in whatever format it is. So when the equations are like this, it's easier to do those x and y intercepts. So to find the x-intercept, you want to plug in a 0 for y and solve. So if I plugged in a 0 for a y, that's going to make this pretty much disappear. And that's why when we were practicing in class, we just covered it up and then just had those little mini problems. That's what's happening. You plug in a 0, it goes away. So same thing with the y-intercept. When you plug in a 0 for your x, it goes away and now you're just solving for your y. X-intercepts are ordered pairs. I must stress this because I have some of my students who are not writing them as ordered pairs and they don't know what they mean. Make sure your answer is in an ordered pair format. So that means it has to have a parenthesis, x and y coordinate, and a comma. That's the way you're supposed to write these. All right, so you might find it, but then you must put it in that format when you're done. So for example, 3x plus 4y equals 24. If we are going to solve and get the x-intercept, we plug a 0 in for y, which pretty much means that goes away. Because look what happens. You have 3x plus 4 times 0. 4 times 0 is 0, so that just goes away. So if you want to skip writing this step, just cover up the y term and solve for x. Then you have 3x equals 24. Dividing by 3, both sides, you end up with x is 8. Okay, that's not a intercept form yet, so you have to put it in intercept form, which means the x comes first, and we didn't have a y, that's why we put a 0. Same thing if you're looking for the y. Again, you don't have to write this first step, but if you notice, if you plug a 0 in for x, it just goes away. So then you end up with 4y equals 24. Y then will be 6, so putting it into a form, remember y is the second coordinate in an ordered pair. So that's why we put the 6 there, and then that means the x is 0. From here, you can graph your 2 points and graph your line. So at 8, 0, remember it's always x first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to be off my grid, about right there. And then this one is 0, 6, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 0, 6, and 8, 0, draw your line. Now, if you needed to find the slope from that form, you could, because you could just connect the dots and count your slope. Let's go ahead and just do that for fun. So I connect my dots. I'm using a red thing. Remember, we went over 8 and we went up 6. Okay, now look at this. Is this a positive or negative? It's a negative, so my slope is going to be a negative, and that's 6 over 8 because we rise before we run, and that reduces to a negative 3 over 4. So you can find, from this, you can find your slope, and if you needed to write it in slope-intercept form, you've got your m, you've got your b, so it's going to be y is equal to negative 3 over 4 x, and my b was right here, plus 6. So you can manipulate things depending on what they give you. You can go back and forth. You just need to remember to all the things that you can do. Okay, you don't need to freak out when you have these things. You just need to remember what you have to have for each form. For a slope-intercept form, you need your M and your B, or your peanut butter and jelly, as we talked about in class. For your intercepts, you need 2 points. From there, you can find all this other stuff. Okay, so you just need to just take a breath when you get a problem, look at what you've got, and figure out a plan. Okay, you've got different tools to use now, and you can use all of them, but you just need to come up with a plan. Okay, so each one of these problems, it's the more challenging part of this chapter. Each one of these problems is going to be different, and you're going to be asked it different ways. Just take one problem at a time and do what you know, and then you'll be able to find the rest. All right? See if I have any more on this. Nope, I don't. All right, so we will practice more in class, and we will have a quiz on this section alone, plus the point slope form. And if you have any questions, come see me, and we'll see you in class.